nice when all the boys stay. I mean, it just makes you cry every time. All the boys standing on the table saying, "Oh, Captain, my Captain." But Robin Williams still walks out of their life, and that's still it. You know, I don't know if you do this, but I often think about the movie after the movie.
Yeah.
One of my favorite authors is John Green, who wrote Looking for Alaska and wrote An Abundance of Catherines. Fault in Our Stars is his biggest movie probably. And people always say, "What happened next?" He says, "You know as much as I know." Right? He just goes, "What do you think happened next?"
Yeah.
And so I think about that with movies, and I go like, where did Robin Williams walk off to?
Yeah.
And what happens next for him?
Yeah.
And great that Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks fell in love, but how do they put their lives together? And what now? And, you know.
Is there any ending that feels complete to you in your top 10?
Hilariously, Baby Mama probably feels the closest to feeling like it wrapped up, and I could not wonder about what's next.
Okay.
Because with all the rest of them, I could sit and wonder. Maybe Julie and Julia as well. But the rest of them, I could sit pretty like, where'd Mary Poppins go? Who was next? And and how did the Banks kids grow up? And you know, I'm one of the crazy people who like goes online and reads a bunch of stuff. And you know, the younger Banks son died in real life like years after filming it. Yeah, he didn't even make it to teenager. I think he had like liver, kidney, something like that. You have to read about it, but
awful.
He dies as a kid. So then you process all of that. Like one of the Banks kids
Was
died.
it a spoonful of
right,
sugar that
what
caused
happened?
this?
So yeah, it feels like I think about all that. I'll tell you the other thing about Mary Poppins that is I love the strength, and maybe this is kind of in more movies than I realize, but the strength of the women.
Yeah, it's definitely in your movies. I had that written down. Is a lot of strong women who are ambitious. They're very modern women. They're doing things in men's worlds,
and they sometimes suffer for it. Because I sometimes feel like I feel like I'm surprised every time I do something that is in a man's space that women don't normally do. I did a conference a few years ago, and I walked off the stage, and the guy said, "You were good. You're the first woman we've had in this conference in the 20 years it's existed, and we didn't know what we were going to have with a woman on stage, but you were good." And I was like, why is anyone saying that to me after 1970? Like, how is that real? Right? Like, I was like, I'm less honored and more hugely disturbed. Right. But so I think, and I mean, I still, every time I vote, I sing the Sister Suffragette song to myself for Mary Poppins, because I go like, you know, our daughters will adore us.
Yeah.
You know, like that is like, I'm almost tearing up saying it to you. That is like incredible. Her character is so underplayed and underappreciated, but that whole idea that my great grandmother didn't vote and would have never gotten to do the job I do. My grandmother couldn't have done the job I do. You know, our daughters will adore us. Well done. And singing Grateful Chorus, well done, Sister Suffragettes.
Yeah.
And I think that every time I vote. And so there's the mom in there, and then there's Mary Poppins, and they both are shaping a world in very different ways. And I really like that. I like that it doesn't paint that Mrs. Banks is the better woman for being out of the house, and it doesn't paint Mary Poppins as the better woman for staying home and raising kids, right? I like that this movie kind of goes like, look, two women in the same home who have two different dreams, and they're both really great.
And Baby Mama.
Yeah, right? Baby Mama, same. You know, she's successful, and she has all these things, but she doesn't know how to balance it all, and she learns, you know? And I love seeing movies like that, especially as I've grown into an understanding of where women can and should fit. And I still am pendulum swinging a little bit. I went from like real Southern, women aren't in a lot of leadership understanding to like raging feminist for like 4 months of like, anywhere you are, I should be too. And I like, a friend of mine recently said the deepest part of the river is the middle. And so trying to swing. And so now I'm trying to really settle in the middle of this into the deep part of what it means to be a woman and what it means to have a calling, what it means to desire husband and family, but still be called to something outside of the home as well, not something greater or less than, but something else. And so I think a lot of these women wrestle with that too. And so I hadn't
that in Pride and
noticed
Prejudice, you know, she's definitely a different kind of woman in that day and age, right? And yet she's still drawn to this man. And you see that with Meg Ryan's character, and you've got Male. She's definitely her own master, you know, and yet at the same time she's drawn. And then you see that in Shakespeare in Love, where she's definitely trying to.
That is so interesting, Brian. I hadn't even noticed how many are kind of women out of their place for the time?
I mean, Julia was a big deal, during that time. Her being a leader and stepping into that world.
It's really interesting. I probably appreciate it. Like, I think so much of this, the interesting thing about movies, and you've said this before, but the interesting thing about movies is a lot of times they tell you stuff about yourself you don't know, right? Like, that's what we're doing here. But also, I think even as I fell in love with these movies, they were telling me things about myself I did not know or was not true yet.
Exactly.
Right? Like, I loved You've Got Mail when she owned a bookstore before I ever dreamed of writing books. Yeah. Right? Though I have a grandmother who owned a bookstore. My other grandmother was a librarian, so that was kind of our circle. But I loved Shakespeare in Love before I ever was operating in a man's world. When I was teaching elementary school, that's mostly a woman's world, right? Yeah. So I think it's true. Super interesting.
What's really cool about it is there are days in which I'll go to work and do this with folks and do our experiences, in which there are literal days where I think that movie was made by a bunch of Hollywood studios or some Hollywood studios and directors and so forth, and they had no idea that was made for this person.
Yeah, right.
That it just feels like magical enough that this was made for this person at this moment in time, you know, and that it was just, that was why it was birthed.
Yeah, that's right. And that's funny because the one I left off is Finding Neverland, and Finding Neverland fits with all these too. A writer who's suffering.
That's true.
A relationship, a ton of misunderstanding. Yeah. I mean, that is really interesting.
Which one of these characters would you want to be?
Oh, who do I want to be?
Yeah, like if you could just step into
Well,
their
I
shoes.
feel like I've been Mary Poppins. I've been a full-time nanny before, and I never understood Mary Poppins until I full-time nannied, and then they didn't need me anymore. Because the mom went through a transition. She was home, but went through this personal, spiritual transition and healing, and all of a sudden wanted to be more plugged in and wanted to have more time at home, and slowly kind of wove me out. And it was sad because I love the kids and I love the job, but I thought, I understand Mary Poppins. Yeah. Because she understands when to leave.
The umbrella at the end.
Yeah. I never had. I actually write about Mary Poppins in Looking for Lovely because I'll be interested to hear you tell me why I did this. But one summer when I was in college, I was working at a church, and the youth minister had been taken by another church to be the pastor, as it was a Methodist church, as happens in June. And so I had signed on to be his intern, and all of a sudden I was the youth pastor. Wow. And it was hugely stressful. And every night I watched Mary Poppins when I came home.
Really?
I fell asleep watching Mary Poppins every single night. It felt like she was taking care of me. It felt like I was watching this person that I understood that could kind of like take care of me or something. And so I connect really deeply to her on the side of she cared for me, and I have felt what it feels like to walk away like she walked away.
Well, thanks for being here today and just sharing your movies with us. It's always a fascinating journey because we don't know where these conversations lead.
It's incredible.
And every time we do, it just comes up with something really cool that I think the people listening, it's like, wow, how did we get there? And trust me, we didn't really plan it. And yet at the same time, it's just beautiful pictures. And the only thing that I would say that I really didn't get enough of what you said is when you were talking about your book and talking about finding beauty, in the little things, going to Broadway and doing the things. And I have a movie on mine, which is Stranger in Fiction. And that's kind of what he learns is the sugar cookies and and I have It's a Wonderful Life, where he finds the beauty in his life. Right? Yeah. And that's pretty much, if you looked at my top 10, that's pretty much at the end of the day, this is what these characters need to really find, is that life really is lived in the
everyday, right? Yeah. That's it. That's exactly it. That's where the beauty is. The beauty is not, when you accept the Grammy. Yeah. It's like when everybody's back on the bus celebrating together, and that's what you remember, I think. You know, or when you're writing the song the first time. So it's those everyday, like, normal things that are what life's about, I think. Yeah. We strive for the big and forget the small, and the small's the part that I like the most.
Yeah. Well, again, what the book's title is?
Looking for Lovely.
And where should people go to buy it?
It's going to be everywhere. It'll be in bookstores. Okay. So if you have a local bookstore you love, I'm a big local bookstore fan. So you pop in there and thank them for having it and buy it. or your Lifeway or,
Yeah.
Barnes & Noble, and then it'll be on Amazon and all the online places too. So.
And if people want to find out more about you.
Yep, Annie F, as in fancy, Annie F. Downs everywhere. That's my website, anniefdowns.com. And then social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, anywhere you want to find me, Annie F. Downs.
That's awesome. Thank you, Annie.
Oh,
so
thanks,
much.
Brian. It was great.
It's been fun.
Thanks for joining us for Real Conversations. If you happen to be in the Atlanta area and would like to explore what your top 10 movies say about you, you can get real by going to realexperiences.com and book an experience. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Real by Art Within.